And we're recording. This is Kubernetes SIG Network Meeting from October 1st, 2020. Bridget's going to start us off with a bit of issue triage.
Great. I just need to be able to screen share.
Oh, every time.
Such an exciting default to turn
You're doing
off.
so well, Casey.
I know. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
You should be good to go.
Okay. How does that look? Does that look like a...
Yep.
All
It
right.
looks like a triage board.
Great. We'll start with, for spooky October, weird output.
Yeah, this isn't, you don't need to spend much time on this. I should have just assigned this to myself, but I'll take it. It's an easy one.
Okay. Do you need me to assign it or?
I guess if I didn't,
It looks like it's already assigned to Jay.
oh yeah.
Oh, I wonder why it came up. I used this link, so anyway, moving on.
Thing stays as unresolved even if it's assigned until someone actually marks it as resolved or triaged.
Triaged, sure. Okay. Static IP for pods with stable network identifier.
Assign this one to me.
All right,
Casey.
Kubernetes SIGNet is Casey.
Are you just going to say stateful set? Is that it?
Depending on what it is they're trying to do. I didn't look fully, but I know we have other issues like this as well.
Is this the right
Yes.
handle?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's me.
Okay. Integration tests.
I
Bring
think,
down core DNS.
yeah, I think this is merged now. You can close this. Yeah, oh, it won't let you close it. Yeah, I guess do /close.
Okay.
Or maybe wait. I mean, the PR for this is merged, but Federation test can bring down core DNS. I mean, I guess this is the issue I opened, right?
How about this?
Yeah, you can assign that to me, but it's pretty much done. Yeah.
That'll make for easy resolution. Empty endpoint rule.
I was checking at this. You can assign to me.
All right.
Anton. Okay.
Yes.
I feel like we fixed this bug like 5 times.
This
This is
weird.
a big jump. It's a jump from 116 to 119 though, which we don't support.
And the kube proxy is saying that it's using the no op local detector. So I don't know how this is working. I asked him to check with the WIF guys to see if.
I mean, so one thing that could really cause this is they're jumping from 116, which is a thing where endpoint slices barely existed. They were alpha, not on by default, to 119, where they're being used by default and read from by default. And so that's just not going to work.
Time travel not supported in Kubernetes. Yeah. Okay. Well, I assigned it. Metrics endpoints. That seems like a DAX question. I mean, they want to know where the port is.
I don't think that this is SIG Network.
But they're asking about the kube proxy. Or are they? No, they're not.
I mean,
They just want to
it's not
know how to look at endpoints and metrics.
Yeah, this is an API control plane issue.
Okay. How do I reassign it?
Well, first, I'm not sure which SIG it would belong to.
Is it API machinery? No.
Or instrumentation.
Or instrumentation. Because is that the service proxy they're talking about?
Sorry, can you scroll back up and show the URL again?
Yeah.
API nodes.
Like, how do they get metrics?
They have to, if they're talking about the the service proxy, then they're running kubeproxy, they have to do it. They have to set that in the configuration for the kubeproxy, right?
No,
But
this isn't kubeproxy. It's under nodes.
oh, it is. Yeah.
And the nodes proxy is to pull. It's going to pick a node and send you to a node, right? But they have noticeably. Oh, I bet there's some angle brackets in there that they didn't properly quote. That's why there's 2 empty slashes.
Okay. How would we like to help this person?
SIG node.
Would this, I mean, this is like, it's not a bug or an enhancement request, right? It's a support
It is
request.
it is a support request, yes.
So do we just close those?
We typically do, but also we try to be helpful. So I think we should bounce this to SIG node and see what they think.
Okay.
It may just be, it's port X, done.
Okay, is that the right way to do that?
And / remove SIG network.
Oh, different line.
Yeah, new line. Remove -SIG, I think.
I think they're trying to get it maybe through the API server metrics endpoint specifically.
Yeah,
so
they're going through the API server's proxy, right? Which is going to send them down to a node, and they're just trying to ask, how do I spell out which port?
Yeah. Okay, so that looks correct.
Jay, the / proxy sub resource is handled by a small number of resources to just redirect you to them on the network. It's a little old weirdness of the API server.
Can I just, what's the issue number? Because I have the doc. I might just link them to the doc and close it with the port numbers and everything.
You found the doc?
Manually constructing API server proxy URLs.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I guess I'm sharing, so I can't.
Okay, I'll grab it.
It's 95147. Okay. Do you want me to assign this to you, Lockie?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Okay. Ooh, dual stack. Very exciting.
So this is an intersection of dual stack and proxy. Do they of the topology? Do they say anything about topology?
They have everything there. They have Calico, topology.
They've got WireGuard.
Sorry, did they say topology in there? I can't see it. Or,
I saw this earlier, and my guess was that
Yeah.
it's something to do with the meta
Here we
proxy somehow.
well, I mean, the good news is that the service topology is not going anywhere. So you can assign this to me, and I'll break their hearts. It's not surprising that the intersection of 2 alpha features results in chaos.
Just tell them that they should be happy it doesn't make the universe explode. Ooh, flaky tests. We're getting timeouts.
You can assign this to Bowie.
Assigned to Bowie.
Yes. Assigned to me.
All right. Great. More flaky tests.
I
Do you
thought
want
I'd
more
already
flaky?
fixed this, but this is definitely for me, Rob Scott.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Excitement. Let's see. People are already discussing it. No firewall. Can't pull images.
You can assign that to me, Bridget. I can take a look.
All right.
It's Ricardo. Cuts.
There you are.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Oh, wow, they're using traffic and metal LB. They're gluing many things together and they don't all work as expected. What do we think?
Is it a question about the ingress API or is it a question about?
They're saying they can't use the IP that they think is external as a load balancer address.
That is not public IP address. That's private.
Yeah.
This feels like a question that may be better spent for Trafic than Kubernetes itself. Yeah, assign this to me. I can follow up.
Okay.
Again, Rob Scott.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We've
All
got
right.
time for one more.
And I have one more. And this one is from 14 days ago. It may be fixed by.
No,
Cameron,
is this assigned to me? Is this one assigned to me?
It looks like you were talking to the person. I can assign it to you if it isn't already.
Yeah, go ahead.
Somehow Athenabot added back.
Sorry?
So it looks like you removed the thing, Triage, and then Athenabot may have added it back.
I'll take a look at it again. It's fine.
Okay. All right. And we are done.
Cool. Thank you, Bridget. Next thing, if I can find my window, was Dan, you wanted to talk about dual stack status check?
Yep, I just wanted to get a quick idea here of where we stand and what we think the forward path is. I listed all the things that we talked about last time and tried to put some links in there. Are any of these things in trouble, or what kind of help do we need to move stuff forward?
So I've been, for reasons crazy, unable to look at these. I have them all open now. I started looking at them in depth this week. And Cal and I have been going back and forth about some of the lower level details of the API transformations. I think other than the API transformations, the rest are reasonable PRs. Like, I've scanned them. I haven't done deep reviews on all of them, but they all seem superficially like they're going the right place. It's just this API machinery stuff that has been back and forth and super simple. So I actually have reasonable confidence that we will be okay with respect to deadlines. Now, Cal, if you're here, you may disagree with that as the receiving end of a lot of silence. I still think that we'll be okay, and this is the very top of my PRs to review category.
Okay, so I mean, since you said deadlines, which deadlines are relevant, and what is our absolute last date that we need to make a decision on whether to move to beta for 120 or not to move to beta for 120? I'll put deadlines a little bit further down in the document there.
I wanted to make sure we talked about that actually, because we had talked a little bit on GitHub in the enhancements issue.
Right.
And I 100% agree that we want to get this stuff landed, but given that we're talking about making a giant change to the networking of Kubernetes itself, I feel like it would be irresponsible of us to say, oh, well, even though we rewrote everything from the last alpha, this is totally a beta. That seems disingenuous and not really responsible or fair. Like, let's land this giant PR and then like let it bake a little before we say, and now it can be beta, because that beta is like we don't get to re-implement anything.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think there's any world where this isn't another round of alpha. My main worry is this is alpha, and then one after that is alpha, and the one after that is alpha. That's what I want to head on.
Oh, let's head that off for sure. Like, let's let it be alpha, and then we move to beta, and then we move to GA, and then all our customers are happy.
I feel pretty good about the reworks that we've been doing on the API. I think we've discovered a lot of stuff, and we've looked at it under a microscope that we've never looked at this stuff before. And honestly, Cal has invented some new techniques within the API machinery. So my feeling is if we alpha this cycle, we have a really reasonable shot at beta next cycle.
So let's just, everybody wants to move to beta. Everybody wants, I personally tired of just circling back and forth. I do want to be conscious on the fact that we changed the API significantly for the services, to the point that you get questions for people who are elbow deep into dual stack, asking questions about, oh, I didn't expect it to work that way. So while I am confident that things will work, and we have pretty good coverage in both ends, unit and E2E, I just want to have a very, like, the door cracked for us if we discovered anything. And truth is, we've been discovering things until the day before yesterday around behaviors that we didn't expect to be there.
Does this need to go through API machinery, or is just going to be approved by SIG Network only?
That's a question for Tim.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question. My audio broke a little bit.
Yeah, if this has to pass for API machinery guys too, or is just with your approval is enough?
I have asked API machinery to take a look and make sure that we're not missing anything in the new stuff, but Daniel Smith's immediate suggestion when I presented the problem to him was exactly what we were planning to do anyway. So I feel pretty good that they are in alignment. In order to try to make some of this a little bit better, I sent them a separate PR, which I added to our agenda. I can discuss it today when my name comes up on the agenda, but a much smaller PR to get some discussion on, which shows the technique that we're talking about.
So just to be clear, Tim, you have reasonable confidence that we are okay getting the PRs listed above landed by the 120 deadlines, but you are not okay with attempting to declare beta for the API itself. Is that a fair statement?
Correct.
Okay, I hope I accurately represented that.
That is correct. And the deadline here being early November.
Well, so we have an enhancements freeze on the 6th of October and code freeze is the 12th of November.
So
I'm looking at the code freeze date.
Okay, but so
the question would be if any of the other pending enhancements, if we consider any of those critical for, well, I guess we're not going to do that. Yeah, I mean, I guess we need to at least figure out if any of the other pending caps are critical to get in this cycle, because if so, there needs to be agreement on them by enhancement freeze. But I think they're all things, they're all smaller pieces. So they're things that we could potentially land in 121 and still be confident about calling it beta in 121.
Excellent point. I've not fully digested them, but you're right. Strictly speaking, we should get those KEPs approved. Since they're all directly related, and in the sake of pipelining, Cal, are you acting as approver on those related KEPs?
No, but I can start taking a look.
yeah, why don't you act as approver, and that way, while you're waiting for me, they're not also waiting for me.
Yeah. I just want to raise the point where while there are the first 3 commits in this massive PR of getting the real love from everybody, there is about 15 other commits covering other places that would need some love from you. All right, so
I think everybody starts looking at your most recent push and then re-reviews the first 3 and then.
yes. So the first 3 are the API stuff. Those are the stuff that we will be locked out once we declare beta. The rest of the stuff is can patch any point of time. So in terms of critical like commitments, yes, the interface is the first 3. All right. But the rest of the code is equally important in terms of the functionality, routing, and so on. Lars and Antonio have done significant amount of validation with, but we need more if you can afford more. All right. I'm getting nightmares. Like you sit down and what if this happened and that happens and so on. All right. So, but I'm focused. To be honest, I'm focused more on the API at least for the last 10 days, just to get this thing done.
So, what is the risk, or could we enter the same situation again in 3 months? How do we make sure that we do everything possible to move this forward in the next couple of months and, not keep doing the same thing we've done for the last 2 years with IPv6 and dual stack?
So if we get
So the answer is always, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if we get this merged in, early here in the release cycle, then we hopefully can see if there's any knock-on effects that we weren't expecting, right? Because like the unknown unknowns are the ones that we can't predict anything about the timing of. Tim.
I was just going to say that exactly. There's always a probability that we missed something that is important, and we won't really find out until we have a diversity of eyeballs trying the thing out and finding what we've missed. So while I feel pretty good about this, I also felt pretty good about it last time.
Yeah, I mean, like we all stood up on stage. Well, you and Cal did last year for KubeCon and talked about it, and we're almost a year later, and like I said, we're still discovering things. How do we not lose momentum, I guess?
I think
So,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say one problem we had before is that, nobody had started using it, and the handful of people in the community who started using it immediately ran into bugs, which I guess a lot of them weren't bothering to report. Either that or nobody else was actually testing it. Because we fixed a ton of bugs between 1.18 and 1.19 in dual stack, such that it was pretty much unusable before that. So I guess we at least know that people can try it out now, which is good.
Okay. I mean, do we feel that more people are using it now and that in the next couple of months we'll get enough test coverage from outside of the dev community?
We could try and put that call out there. I think the other thing that happened last time is that, the team at Red Hat did some soak tests after the fact, and I don't know, wave the magic Clayton wand as soon as this, and team because there's a lot of use cases that you're testing that aren't an upstream about migration. And that's where we caught a lot of the problems, which was when you turn it on, when you turn it off, field defaulting, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know if we can light up those test paths a little earlier in the release cycle rather than RC1, and see if we can get more signal out of whatever is internal to Red Hat on user migration between versions. I think that was where we got caught, and feature flag flipping. So I don't know if anybody has because that all came out of the woodwork afterwards. The other thing we could do is push on it and go back to the release team and say, can we make a big concerted effort comms wise to say, we really need a call to action here. If you're interested in this, we need to test it because we want to move this quickly.
I also think this is a year later, And this is my last meeting of my day. It is my 7th meeting of my day. My first meeting of my day was with people who are, chomping at the bit to be using dual stack pretty much instantly. And we keep having to tell them that it is not in any way production and we can help you set up a test cluster. So I think there's interest out there.
It's still only March, Dan. Don't worry about, it hasn't been a year. It's only been 3 months, right?
Well, I mean, I was thinking
bad joke.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was thinking in terms of, we had a big push last summer with, I think, the first round of giant PRs for dual stack. Here we are a year later with the second push. I'd be really sad if we are in the middle of 2021 with a third big PR for dual stack. But I do agree we're in a better place. And just to close out the conversation, since we have a lot more stuff on the agenda, in summary, as a SIG, please tell me if this is accurate. As a SIG, we are not comfortable declaring the API beta at this point in the release cycle. We want to close out the PRs listed above and make sure that the KEPs there also get discussion and agreement. And then at that point, we could revisit, but we don't think that it's going to be ready to declare beta for 1.20. Is that accurate?
I think it's accurate, except I think we are biting off more than we can chew, and it's not realistic for us to be looking at the date of October 1st and saying, we might. No, we're not going to. Let's not put that pressure on ourselves. Let's be kind to ourselves and say, what we can do is deliver an alpha that's really solid, that works, that we are ready to stand behind and make any changes that we actually have to make. I don't want to put false hope of beta or false pressure of beta on anyone.
And
okay.
Then there are about 6-7 things API wise that are not done anywhere in the APIs. All right.
Yeah. Understood.
Even if and the cases that we don't, it's the unknowns. Last time we were dealing with pluralization. Now we're dealing with linked field, clear on updates and stuff that really scary. All right. I am fairly confident that it works, but I haven't seen it running 100%. So, right?
Yep. No, I mean, that's totally fair. I'm just trying to bring some clarity to the question since we keep dancing around it.
So I just asked in chat, is there any value in beta-ing some parts of this and not the whole thing? Like, if we felt really good about hot IPs, like, is there any point in beta-ing just that part of it? I'm not sure there is, but I feel like I have to ask.
Pod IPs are already pretty much, like, they're mostly not feature gated. If the CNI plugin reports dual stack pod IPs, then Kubelet will use them.
Beta and alpha doesn't mean really anything to the code. It means to the user. So it doesn't really mean like alpha beta stage doesn't really mean anything code-wise. This stage, there are users. To answer Tim's question, there are users who have a problem, a partial problem of egress to dual stack. They don't necessarily want to egress dual stack, but they want to be able to consume other like external IPs that happen to be v6 from a cluster that's v4. So there might be value there in your question.
If any of us had tested that scenario.
All right, I think we can move on.
Yeah, thanks, Dan, for kicking off that discussion. Ricardo, you were next. You wanted to talk about what's been going on in the network policy subgroup.
Yeah, thank you, Casey. So I'm going to try to be really fast, but there's a lot of discussion here. So in April, Jay started to gather some information about who wanted to join a discussion about the evolution of network policy. And me as an end user, with a cluster admin profile, decided to join because I just didn't wanted to use vendor-specific network policy APIs to have features like cluster scope, network policies, or policies priorities. I think that's important to make clear what we are trying to do there. And instead having this as a part of Kubernetes API, or at least with trying to get some common sense. We started to gather some GitHub issues and customer issues, some nice ideas from discussions from the group. Andrew helped us to turn this into an official sub-project, and then Winship took the document that was pretty messed and made a nice organization that turned some things clear for us. Like, we may have this feature now in V1 if we propose it right. What can we add to the V1 network policy, and what we need as a newer object. So I'm here as the messenger, so please don't kill me, to show you the first user stories that we've been discussing in the last 2 meetings that could become additions to the current V1 API, except to the last one that Abhishek is probably going out also to bring you, because that's a big effort and something really different. And the idea here is that we can discuss this to open the CAP issues and start writing the CAP proposal if the SIG agrees with that. So, and also to punctuate, we are willing to move forward with the other user stories and ask everyone that wants to join us every Monday. We are still discussing some user stories and trying to figure out how is this going to become a new object and a new data model. So there is a link in the agenda. If you want me, I can share you the screen. That's okay, Casey? Just
go ahead.
Yeah, so here it is. So those are the 3 use cases that we've been mapping as something plausible to be added to V1, and the effort or the discussion level that we think that it's going to bring us. So the first one is port range and port set, because the actual network policy ports field in ingress and egress policy, that's an array that needs a declaration of each single port to be contemplated. So what we are trying to achieve here is allow a network policy to contemplate a set of ports in a single room. So like the problems, a user wants to allow egress to all node ports on another cluster, like 30,000 to 32,000. And the user will have to declare each port as a single field in the network policy, and we are trying to solve this. And also a third group of users wants to allow their pods to communicate with a range of ports like 6,000 to 9,000, except to port 6, the Redis port, which they consider insecure. So this is what we are going to try to solve in the first use case. I'm going to move forward and we can probably discuss later. So the next one is select namespace by naming network policy. I know there is a lot of discussion with SIG architecture. I know that the team is pulling into an issue also, like discussing about virtual labels and so on. So, but we decided to put this here because this is something that we see a lot of people asking, and we don't know if, like, is it okay to wait until virtual labels becomes a consensus or not? So API supports only selecting pods by label, which is fine, and namespace by labels, which is not fine due to problems specified below. Like namespace are often standalone and may not need to be logically categorized using labels, like kube system, or referencing by name prevents unnecessary labeling of namespace to fit into the network policy API. And also a group of users wants to allow ingress in their pods from any pods in another namespace, but they don't want to trust the label as a selector of the namespace because per cluster and back, any user can put their own label. So if I can write into my namespace, I can put a label in my namespace and I can turn it into a role namespace. And this is a medium effort because I know there is a lot of discussion to be made about here in SIG Network. And the last one, it's ones from Abhishek. That's about a cluster scoped network policy. And this one, we've been discussing about, okay, this needs a different data model. How we know that this is an enforcing cluster scope or this is like a suggesting cluster scope network policy. But the limitations from view 1 is that the API only supports namespace rules, but you cannot create a rule that applies to a set of namespace. The API only supports expressing its intent of a developer role and does not capture the requirements of an administrator role. So as I said, as I am here, like an end user with cluster admin profile, this is something that I've been seeking a lot. And I only have this by vendors and not like a vanilla, an upstream core API object. Those are the problems to be solved. The bigger one, I think, that's the cluster admins once that our namespace have a default deny rule for ingress and egress, but that's up to the developer to open a new namespace specific network policy, or maybe opening everyone to communicate to keep DNS. So Tim has wrote in something. Do you want to speak, Tim? I think that's better. We want feedback from all of you before we can.
Sorry, I'm just having some weird audio.
Yeah. So.
Sorry, so I'm having some audio problems. So I was typing. I'll just stick.
Okay, so
yeah,
so yeah, go ahead, folks.
Yeah, so just in case it wasn't clear, so these are the use cases that we just want to start writing tests for, and so we're looking for feedback from the SIG on whether these ideas aren't crazy and they're reasonable and trying to solve real problems before we put in the effort and start writing tests for them.
I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but my sense is that these are a reasonable set of scenarios, and it's probably worth progressing them. I mean, I agree that the third one is large and maybe not quite as ready to like jump in and write code on right now, but it is certainly a use case that we hear a lot about.
If you introduce the third one, like, don't you need to like have some kind of priority in the network policy resources?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we said that's large for sure, is priority winds up becoming a part of it.
Yeah, as part of
and a lot of other things.
As part of the cluster scoped policies, we are kind of like looking at, precedents and, how to enforce those policies, and those are the kind of questions we're trying to answer. We are Gobin, Zhang, Yang, and I have been meeting weekly to write and solve those problems. So we are preparing some Google Doc, and once we have like a relative set of answers and maybe a sketch of an API, maybe we can first show this to the sub project, and then once we have a broader agreement, we can come back here. But that is a very large effort, so it's not something that will be immediately available. But at least I think if we all agree that this is something that we can spend time on, then I guess we'll put efforts into answering all the questions, like precedence and the responsibilities of administrator.
So we don't have a lot of time to talk about details for these, but does anybody have any objections to the sub-project making KEPs for any of these? My sense is that the first two are probably pretty small KEPs, so if you wanted to start with one or both of those, that is a lower risk path to take.
Hey, great.
Yay.
Well, yeah, it wasn't that hard, Jay. Thank you, folks. Let's move forward.
Thanks, guys.
We thought y'all were gonna say no, so but we're like, well, let's just do it anyway and see what happens.
Hello. Oh.
Hello. Yes, Oleg, you're up next.
Yeah. I'm Oleg. So we like I work at Zendesk, we have like a bunch of clusters in production. Basically, all of Zendesk is hosted in Kubernetes. And recently, as a part of migration to Service Mesh and Istio, our Service Mesh team asked like that they would like to have different server-side blocks in clusters, between clusters. Like right now, we have the same server-side block in each individual cluster. So I came up with a solution how we can do that, and I tested it, but I would like to get more some feedback from SIG Network, because you definitely know better how it works. So my current approach, TLDR, is the following. So I patched the kube proxy and added a second field, which is basically all server-side block. And this, if all server-side block is specified, then external IPs that within that server-side block would be treated as a cluster IPs. So it would generate proper IP tables rules for the cluster IPs. This is like first part. And second part, in API server, I disabled validation to allow updating cluster IPs, and added logic if cluster IP is set to empty string, then basically try allocate IP address again and assign it to a service. So, and all other stuff like to support multiple, to have support in certificates, like different different Kubernetes IP addresses, Kubernetes service IP addresses, and whatnot. So, and so the rollout would be basically, I'll roll out kube proxy that would allow me to have treat cluster IPs from old server-side block and from new server-side block as is, and then wrote custom utility that would basically update all of these services, and it would put cluster IP from old server-side block to external IP in a service, and get empty cluster IP. So when I submit this to API server would allocate new cluster IP, and it would not prevent any existing routing. So it would like no IP. I would not expect any IP table changes for old cluster IPs. And then after all services are done, I'll just roll out cluster second time by removing external IP. So after the rollout, everything should just get cluster IPs and whatnot. So this is like TLDR approach. So I would like to get any, like, what am I missing basically? Hopefully it was clear.
So is the goal primarily to allow a user to migrate from one to another, or is the goal to allow a user to have an arbitrary number of them?
The goal is just to migrate so that all clusters that we have will have different service-side blocks.
And how, maybe I missed it. If I have two CIDR blocks, how do you ensure that new services always come from the correct CIDR block so you can drain the old one?
So API server will use only, and like after, so API server would be updated to use only new server-side block. It would complain that like there are services from old server-side block, but the patching kube proxy would generate, continue to generate IP tables rules to treat them as a cluster IPs, like that. Yeah. So about two server-side blocks, only kube proxy knows basically. So kube proxy would properly handle like the old server-side block and the new one. And after the rollout is done, we'll just, yeah, this is like, I need that one. So because I don't want to break any currently running workload. And then we can just reroll the cluster. So we reschedule all the pods basically, and then DNS would return to them only cluster IP, like core DNS. It wouldn't like deal with external IP. So it looks pretty safe to me. So, but I'd like to get your feedback on that.
So I'm guessing that lots of us are still kind of digesting the approach a little bit. Is there a way that, like, folks who are interested in this or have ideas about it might be able to get in touch with you or brainstorm some more? Like what's the best way to
Is there
reach
a
you?
cap?
It looks like there's a link to a Slack conversation.
Yeah, I think it definitely needs a cap.
It needs some writing because there is a lot of details involved.
Yep, so it sounds like the recommendation is to raise a cap for where you can kind of write down the approach you've been thinking about and give folks more of a chance to digest and provide feedback that way.
Okay, I mean, so the question is like, I'm not sure if everyone in community needs that one. So I'm not sure, I'm fine to like just patch PBPS on our own fork, perform a migration and deal with it. So I'm not asking about pushing, like having this support to migrate in upstream Kubernetes, unless there is a request for that.
It's not the first time I've heard this. It's not a common request, but it's not the first time I've heard it. So I think it's worth writing a KEP so we can decide, is this simple enough that we could accept it, or is it so complicated that we really just can't?
Or so specific.
Yeah, the KEP is useful because you'll get a lot of people who can look at it and think about different perspectives. I've already got 3 or 4 questions I want to ask, but we're not going to have time today.
Okay, then I'll ask in Slack, like what's the process of writing KEP, and we'll follow up. Thank you.
Thanks. So we're at about 10 minutes left. We've got still a few here, so we may not get through all of them, but let's do our best. Matt, you were next.
Hey everybody, Matt Fenwick here, kind of sort of new to the Kubernetes stuff. So I'm working on migrating the network policy tests, EDE tests over. We have a PR up and, working through that. So I just wanted to ask anybody, like for a little bit of advice or help on, since I'm pretty new to this, kind of navigating this process, figuring out how to get the PR to the next level and so on.
Well, I was talking, I think that with you and with Jay today. So the E2E tests grew organically, and replacing things is pretty dangerous. So just today, we had somebody did a refactor, and we had one test failing for 15 days, and it was just a simple thing. So what I suggested is just start in parallel, and with more incremental steps. Because if you are going to run a PR with a lot of changes, it's going to this code is not gated. Also, you should try to engage with the SIG testing folks too.
Okay.
I mean, if you start incrementally, I'm volunteer to help you and to test the old code and the new. But what I'm asking you, please, is to not replace, is to do this, in parallel.
Yep. Yeah, totally. That makes sense. Yeah, I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, that makes it. Yeah, we talked about that in Slack today. So yeah, Matt, I guess the next thing to do is we need to just move the labels for the network policy stuff so that it doesn't collide with the original ones so we can have orthogonal. And Antonio had a good idea, which is just, and I think we merged it, an update to the KEP to be like 10 like cycles where with no changes to the tests and passing and everything in CI. I actually like that because it'll make it easier for us to compare things. And it'll make us easier. The incremental thing makes it easier for us too. So I like that, Antonio. Plus, if you're going to help us review it, that's great.
Yeah, my suggestion is just run one test only. So create all the scaffolding that you have with all the things to create these DSLs and all these things, but just run one test. And with that test, I'm volunteering to test in our CI too, and from that we can start iterating. Because if you are going to run a 2,000 lines test, nobody's going to be able to review. Or I mean, if you try that and it fails, who's going to debug that?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
So
when you say run one test, you mean, so we already ported per the KEP, part of the original KEP was to actually rewrite all the tests, but so we've ported 30 of them at this point. We're missing SCTP. Since they're going to be running orthogonal, what would be the problem with merging them as is?
No, sorry, that's why, because I didn't know that you already done everything. So I thought that you were starting, so no problem at all.
Yeah, and we've been running this CI for about a year now too, so it's very stable.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought that this was a new development. So I can try to check the PR and run in our CI too and compare. I will give you feedback this week.
All right, cool. Yeah, I appreciate it. And just to be clear, there's no real urgency from my end. I just want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to, to help move this process forward and make it really easy for everybody, who's like looking at it and stuff like that.
Yeah, thanks for helping me finish it, Matt. I appreciate it. And everyone else is helping.
If somebody wants to add new test cases, end-to-end test cases to cover additional scenarios, shall we target in the original format or the new format, or don't add?
I think it's fair if somebody does it in the old format, and then maybe it's our responsibility to keep those, to keep the new tests up to date. What do you think, Jay?
I mean, I don't know. I always feel like I like the new format better, but I'm biased. But Abhishek, you know the new format really well since you wrote some of this stuff. So maybe we can do both together, or maybe we can talk about it offline.
Sure.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. Yeah, thanks.
Rob, you are next.
Yeah, mine's pretty quick. I have a couple KEPs KEP PRs out there right now. This would be kind of an evolution of topology. Although they're two PRs, they're closely related. One is about subsetting endpoint slices and basically updating kube proxies so it could consume endpoint slices that were delivered to the zone or region it was sitting in. And the second one is much larger, and that is about how we would actually subset those endpoint slices. I think it's valuable to have these separate because the second KEP is all about how the endpoint slice controller would behave. And the first KEP is about how you could publish any endpoint slice from any original location and deliver it to a specific kube proxy only. So it's kind of a more generic, smaller feature. They both kind of are tied together. I think it is reasonable to, if we had to choose just one, the first endpoint slice subsetting is kind of a dependency of this plan for evolving topology-aware routing. But I'm really, really interested in feedback because there are some changes proposed here, especially on the topology one, and interested in what people think about the new potential approach. And obviously a reminder that we're super close, more close than I'd like to think, to that enhancements freeze. And it would be great to maybe at least get one of these in. Two would be awesome. Whatever, but if people have cycles where they can take a look, feedback would be very appreciated. That's all I've got.
Cool. And then one more item from Minhan. Got
Yes.
2 minutes. Does it fit?
Yes, it should fit. So this is not even a CAP PR yet, so it's a draft CAP. I share it with Google Doc so that the discussion will be easier on a Google Doc than on a PR review. So this CAP is about supporting external workload outside of the Kubernetes cluster. External workload can be a VM, bare metal, and things like that. So this CAP mostly propose CRD, basically a standardized API in Kubernetes to represent these external workload instances, and a controller that somehow guarantees the lifecycle and things like that. So make it at least somewhat consistent across the platforms. So that's basically the gist of the CAP. So feel free to take a look. I will also send it out in the email group. So, yep, that's it. Yeah, I wanted to at least get some initial feedback before I formalize it into a PR. Yeah, I expect a lot of feedbacks from folks who are interested. Yep, that's all.
Great. Thanks, Minhan. If you're interested in that, please check it out. And so that brings us to time for the day. So thanks everybody for coming. I'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Bye.